Well, we're going to have a very truncated meeting this morning, aren't we? We just do what we can. I do think, though, that we should do a couple more videos, because I really want to, my goal in this week and next, is to really stretch your imagination about the glory of this world. And I want you to learn how to discover how you're immersed in mystery and wonder and ineffable beauty and glory. We just don't usually see it. That's the problem. I'm looking at, this is from our yard here, just a couple of weeks ago, I guess. But what I was looking at, when you look at something like this, I just took this yesterday, this camellia. What do you see? And then imagine the feeling it, because it has such a wonderful feel. If you just had a texture garden, because I have the lamb's ear on one hand and then these prickly things in the other, the whole range of God's design is so immense. But another thing that I took that I thought you'd find interesting then would be this. This is a tulip poplar. And this is a throwaway. This isn't actually the form it was at first, because it was magnificent. This thing just throws away these seed pods, but they're designed beautifully and elegantly in every respect, because God cares as much about the intermediate stage as he does about the final product. Everything is complex and wonderful and excellent. And then I took a photo of this. Well, this seems like a rather strange photo, but take a better look. You're looking at wonder. This is basically a sweet gum tree, and these are the pollen fronds. And no two will ever be the same, you see. But if you were to magnify these things, they would be actually an architect's marvel. It'd be a design because of the way it structures and holds this pollen together in a way that is absolutely incredible. You can see just sort of the fine-tuning structure of this. Throw away. Millions and millions of these things, all over the place, littered with glory and beauty, if you have the eyes to see and the ears to hear. You see what I'm saying? Look, we have to train ourselves to see it, because we don't normally notice these things. This extraordinary thing I saw that was on the tree, and this was like a, what was it? I forgot the name of it now, but it was just wonderful. And then the amaryllis, and again, the structure of this flower, the elegance, the texture. And if you were to just look at one cell, it'd be enough to boggle the imagination. So what I'm inviting you to do is to train yourself to see beauty and goodness and truth. What shocked me here, for example, when you look at this, I forgot about the fact that these things have these seed pods that are temporarily there. This Chinese maple, and then Japanese maple rather, and it just throws these things off. Complex, wonderful things. No two things the same. If you just looked at seeds in the world, the millions of kinds, each has its own structure and its form and its function. It's dazzling is what it really is. And then the succulents and so forth. So God's world is rich and abundant in beauty. The scale of the universe I wanted you to take you to, though, to see something that I think we looked at before, and we were looking at astronomy and getting the bigger perspective here. So let me get the astronomy here. And then I had the scale of the universe, which is where I was here. And you might recall that I kind of took you down like this, and worked our way down and down and down, and each circle is 10 times smaller than the one before. It's an order of magnitude, and so it's unimaginably small when you get down here and your water molecule here, and we can't understand a water molecule. The water is filled with mystery because there are forces and fields and so forth. This is the nucleus of an atom is not something solid at all. It's actually a probabilistic field of forces. It's a complex, mysterious thing, and it too is actually composed of quarks, and these are mysterious things. Everything's Trinitarian. Turns out we never knew this until the 20th century, that everything is basically quarks and leptons, which means quarks, 3 parts. Everything's Trinitarian. And only this level of science could reveal that God's embedded that in the code. The world is filled with codes, and we're going to talk about just a few things that God uses, the Fibonacci series and the perfect ratio, golden ratio, and all kinds of wonderful things that are built, hardwired. It's coded as well. And the more we learn about this, the more mysterious it truly becomes, so that we go inside and further down. The bottom quark. They just found out that one of these quarks now actually is developing, it creates these muons as well as electrons. And the muons have changed the rules because now there may be a fifth fundamental force in nature. The more we learn, the more we know how little we know. It's true of everything, every order of magnitude. So my desire, so you look at here and all of a sudden, wham, 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 because it's unimaginably small. Then till you get to the smallest length conceivable, and then you build your way up and work your way up to this level. And we saw this last time together, and I'll show you another way of looking at it. But when you get out to this level here, it just keeps on getting further until you get into the observable universe. It's quite mysterious, and you see this complexity. Another way of looking at that is this image here, this thing called cosmic eye, and it's a kind of a state of the view. This is in California then, so we're starting here at the Google headquarters here, and you zoom out, and again, I'm not going to go into the details, but you can just zoom out, and you can get a sense. So here's Google there, and then Silicon Valley, and then you move out like this, and you begin to see. So we're still familiar with this area, but it becomes more mysterious the more we realize this is unaccountably, unimaginably huge. I mean, it's all empty space. And in an atom, I was telling a table over there, if you had the nucleus of an atom, let's say, and it was the size, let's say, of a basketball, the nearest electron would be over a mile away. It's all empty space. So out there, although you see these major structures, yes, they're there, but they're so far apart. It's unimaginably far. You can't conceive, because the nearest star is over 26 trillion miles away. So the vastness of the emptiness of both the macrocosm on the one hand and the microcosm of the other, where it's forces and fields and mysteries, and nobody knows what it is, because we don't even know what energy is. We can't define energy. I mean, there are various kinds of energy, mechanical and so forth, but no one can define what energy is. But everything is made, right, this thing here, it's just slowed down compressed energy. But you can't name it. So you're immersed in mystery. Now, my job is to impress you with the one who made all this, so that you begin to see that. And then you get into this local supercluster and so forth, and you see this filamentary structure that is so extraordinary that made me think then of this whole idea of this imagery here. I may have shown this to you before, this thing. Did I show this to you? I don't know. But they recently discovered that this filamentary structure in the galaxies is very much like the filamentary structure in your brain. You see, it's the same kind of a thing, and they're actually the odd structural between the human brain and the universe. God uses all these things. And you know, when I first learned about the filamentary structure, it struck me, it really looks like the brain. And then they just came up with this thing. So it's an astonishment then. We just look at this world, this vastness of this world, and we see what God's up to here, what he's doing, and revealing to us things that we could have never imagined. Now, as we go back down again, we get more familiar again, and then we go inside, you see. And then we go inside the eye, you see. And then it just gets more, the elegance never stops. And we're looking inside the white blood cell, and then inside the leukocyte. And then you go into the DNA itself, the strands of DNA, and the double helix, and as you zoom inside of those, and then you see further the inner electrons and the outer electrons, and atomic emptiness, until you finally get to the nucleus, and then you have these quarks, and then you go back down, and you go down to that. So why am I showing you that? Because I'm impressed, and I want you to be impressed. the more we know, the more vast it becomes. We begin to realize it is absolutely an astonishment. There's another way of looking at this, and it's going to be, I'm going to be doing it in this case through this cell biology. So I'm going to take you to that for a moment, and I'm going to show you the inner life of this cell. And just a word about this. This is an interesting thing. It's going to talk about what your cells look like. You have about 40 or so trillion cells in your body. Actually, though, you have more cells in your body that are actually bacteria and other forms than your own body. You're actually carrying all kinds of stuff with you. You're kind of a microcosm of all kinds of wonderful things. But you then, if you look at this cell, and if you just look at and just listen to this for just a moment.
Key selectins on endothelial cells interact with PSGL1, a glycoprotein on leukocyte microvilli. Leukocytes, pushed by the blood flow, adhere and roll on endothelial cells because existing interactions are broken, while new ones are formed. These interactions are possible because the extended extracellular domains of both proteins emerge from the extracellular matrix, which covers.
You got all that down there so far? Just make sure extracellular matrix here.
The outer leaflet of the lipid bilayer is enriched in sphingolipids and phosphatidylcholine. Sphingolipid-rich rafts raised above the rest of the leaflet recruit specific membrane proteins.
How are they communicating? What's making these things move along? What's telling them to do this? So when you look ahead and you see that it creates these structures here, it just goes on, and these extraordinary complex chemistries that we can't actually replicate in the laboratory. Don't believe what they say about creating cells. We're not doing anywhere near that. We are seeing that every cell of your body is so profoundly complex. Look at these structures here that you have. Everything is wired in such ways we can hardly even imagine what it's like. If you had a cell and made it as large as the city of Atlanta, you would find that this Atlanta would be actually less sophisticated than the cell. It builds, for example, highways, these nanotubes, builds them up so that it can actually take a protein that is just created through this complex structure. I'll hardly even, in the cytoplasm, I won't even talking about when it uses transfer RNA and then puts it into the Golgi apparatus and the ribosome, and then it actually manufactures these proteins by taking 20 different kinds of amino acids, putting them in the right perfect sequence, and then folding them, and then a second fold and a third fold. So the topography actually has to do with the actual information. It goes, and no one knows how to do this stuff. And then it tells it, now this has to go over there. I'm building this protein, one of thousands of kinds of proteins. The cell has to know, I need a protein here. So who's instructing this? What manufacturer? And then you have the nanotubes are being built as a kind of a highway that brings it transported from here to here, which would be like miles away on the scale. You with me there? And then it breaks down the nanotubes, or the cell would become totally full of them. Who is instructing this? What's guiding this? These are not little motors. These are not, but it's like a factory. You see, it's like an industrial complex that boggles our imagination. So just to give you a feel, you see how these things work, these nanotubes, how they break up like that, and then this mitochondria moves around here and does all these wonderful complex things that we don't even begin to grasp unless you're an expert, and even then the experts have to admit that they don't know what they're talking about because it's just this way. So when I look at this and I see that, or the molecule, you see, it's your body's molecular machines again. I'll just let you hear just the beginning of this.
These are tiny molecular machines, and they are doing this inside your body right now. To understand why, we have to zoom out. Every day in an adult human body, 50 to 70 billion of your cells die. Either they're stressed or damaged or just old. But this is normal. In fact, it's called programmed cell death. But to make up for all these lost cells, right now, billions of your cells are dividing, essentially creating new cells. And that process of cell division, also called mitosis, well, it requires an army of tiny molecular machines. So let's take a closer look. DNA is a good place to start, the double helix molecule we always talk about. This is a scientifically accurate depiction of DNA created by Drew Barry at the Walter and Eliza Hall Institute of Medical Research. If you unwind the two strands, you can see that each has a sugar phosphate backbone connected to the sequence of nucleic acid base pairs, known by the letters A, T, G, and C. Now the strands run in opposite directions, which is important when you go to copy DNA. Copying DNA is one of the first steps in cell division. Here, the two strands of DNA are being unwound and separated by the tiny blue molecular machine called helicase. Helicase literally spins as fast as a jet engine. The strand of DNA on the right has its complementary strand assembled continuously, but the other strand is more complicated because it runs in the opposite direction. So it must be looped out with its complementary strand assembled in reverse, section by section.
Do you see what's going on here? When you look inside one cell, the more we're learning, the more we know we don't know. And this just goes on and on. We don't have the time to go through it.
Trillion cells in the body?
The estimates are about 40 to 60 trillion cells in your body. And to make a cell is so complex, and yet it's making millions every day. Millions of cells are dying and millions are being replaced. And so you look within this elegant structure here, and you look inside of this, you see? And these chromosomes here, like this, you see? The process it takes an hour in mammals, so this footage, it actually breaks apart. And the complexity of this structure, we have nothing even close that can do anything like this. And we don't even, we're looking at mystery. And the more we see about this mystery, the more astonishing it really becomes.
Get ready to divide. The kinetochore also mechanically senses tension. When the tension is just right and the position and attachment are correct, all the proteins get ready, shown here by turning green. At this point, the stop signal broadcasting system is not switched off. Instead, it is literally carried away from the kinetochore down the microtubules by a dynein motor. That's the walking guy. This is really what it looks like. It has
The little walking guy, you know. But again, I won't go further, but except just to show you that it boggles the imagination. That's what I'm trying to say. The cell, nobody understands how this is working in this way. I'm impressed with the level of knowledge we've been able to figure out about the way it's working. But we are beginning to discover that we don't know anything. You have to know a lot to know how little you know. And that's the way it is. The mind of the maker is boundless, it's infinite. And he delights in what is often called gratuitous beauty. He throws it in, extra. And this beauty is not necessary for adaptation. It's called non-adaptive coding. Your body's filled with this thing. And so you look at these marvels and wonders, and I'm afraid we're just about out of time, but I just wanted to call that to your attention because of the power of this. And I think I'm going to show you one last thing, just because I want to. And it's my party, and I can cry if I want to. So I'm going to go out of here and go out of here, and I'm going to go to make sure I've got the right one here. So I'm going to go to, I want you to just look at a dandelion, what we call a weed. And it won't just take very long, and then I'll have some questions for you. So if we go to this dandelion here, and this is one place I recommend for you is the John 1010 Project. So it's a good YouTube channel for you to consider. John 1010 Project. The other one is the Discovery Institute. So that is one of the things I want you to see. So the dandelion video, okay, I'll find that there, is going to be found. John 1010 Project here. let's see here. Second from the top. There it is. There it is. Yeah, that's the one. So let's open that up and take a look.
And guidance is internal. Ignition sequence start. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
You're watching the launch of 1,000 flying machines, each exquisitely crafted to airdrop life throughout the earth. A dandelion puff exists for one crucial purpose: to disperse the flower's seeds as far as possible from the parent plant. Its component parts are well suited for the task. Dozens of individual seeds are attached to the head of this flower. Each is covered with microscopic hooks that will eventually help anchor them to fertile soil. A thin stem elevates a cluster of bristles called the pappus, and these filaments are engineered to respond to variations in the weather. On a rainy morning, the moist, heavy air makes extended flight all but impossible. Every pappus reacts by closing tightly. But later in the day, when the air dries out and the temperature warms, the reaction is quickly reversed in preparation for takeoff. Under optimal conditions, a seed can stay aloft for more than 10 miles. At the University of Edinburgh in Scotland, a team of engineers discovered how these tiny mechanisms fly so well. Using a vertical wind tunnel, they photographed the dynamics of airflow around the seed. When currents passed between the bristles, a swirling whirlpool called a vortex ring formed just above the pappus. In nature, this pocket of low pressure sucks the parachute upward and stabilizes its movement as it's carried by the wind. Other studies have also revealed that the vortex's shape and ability to maintain its position are determined by the size and quantity of the bristles and the amount of empty space between them. Simulation models demonstrate that in a biological structure this small, the finely tuned airflow required for flight is the product of circular geometry with 92% open space and 100 thread-like filaments. Not surprisingly, that's the blueprint for the pappus of a typical dandelion seed. How well does this technology work? When compared to a conventional parachute, the pappus is at least 4 times more efficient at maintaining altitude and slowing the seed's descent to Earth. Innovation, foresight, and world-class engineering, all displayed in living wonders so common and familiar, we pass them by each day without a glance or second thought.
That line, the earth crammed with heaven, and every common bush aflame with God, afire with God. So what you're seeing here is something so extraordinary that the geometry, the physics of this thing works out ideally so that it's actually just like this. It's the perfect formula. And we can't build something quite like this. And so I guess, again, marvel and wonder at the glory of the living God who has made such wonders known. Next week we're going to look at the puffer fish, but here is a photo I took of a dandelion up in the mountains. And again, you see this glory of God in looking at this detail, the structure. It is like if we built a building like this, it'd be an impressive thing. If we just had the humility to get our cues from the natural world, we'd do a whole lot better. We can't reverse engineer this stuff as well. So why do I show this to you? I want to impress you that you're surrounded by beauty all the time. Remember that phrase, an earth crammed with heaven. And every common bush afire with God, but only he who sees takes off his shoes. The rest sit round and pluck blackberries. So I want you today to make your view of this palette right now. There's a spring palette. It's on the tail end, but it's glorious. And you see the efflorescence of beauty all around you. Take a note of it and see it doxologically. What do I mean by that? To the glory of God. So I want you to begin to train yourself, because it takes training for you to begin to become increasingly aware of the beauty in which you are immersed all times, you see. Every tree, just look at the architecture of a tree itself, and as they're building their leaf canopies, and all these structures, any flower, anything you want will do. And so we see the glory of God that's revealed in so many extraordinary ways that these are flowers that you just look at the symmetry, the beauty, the structure, the elegance. These are various flowers like dahlias from our garden and others like this. And so you just look at these structures, this lily, this two-color. Why do we resonate with this? And how ephemeral, how brief it is, and yet how elegant it is. And he himself knows our frame. He is mindful that we're but dust. Like the flower of the field, so we flourish. As when the wind is passed over it, it is no more, and its place acknowledges it no longer. But the beauty is the loving kindness of the Lord is forever to ever on those who love him and those who serve him. So we begin to see that there is some glory. Now, I just gave you two. I didn't get to the pufferfish. The pufferfish is my favorite little creature there. But we'll stop there and just have a shorter time around the table looking at the first two. But I want you to chew on this. I want you to train yourself to see, because you see Psalm 19 makes it clear. The heavens are declaring the glory of God. The world is revealing him, but you have to train yourself to see it. Because the more you see and appreciate the general revelation of God, the more it'll enhance your appreciation of the special revelation of God, the inspired word, the incarnate word, the indwelling word. And the more you appreciate about the revealed God, the more you will actually appreciate the created order, the general. So they both reinforce each other. So I'll leave you with that. So that to me is something I want you to do, is just to take time to observe the beauty of the created order. Any questions or thoughts you had? Yes?
The pufferfish.
The pufferfish.
You know, when that video started, I wondered where in the world.
Did I show you the pufferfish already?
No, you sent the video.
Oh, I sent you the pufferfish, yeah.
Some of us have seen it, though.
Yeah, some of you have already seen the pufferfish.
And
Yeah.
so, you know, when you start looking at it, you know, you don't get any sense out of it. But as the fish continues to work and the camera begins to
That's clever. They don't show the whole thing at once. It's a nice reveal, because you're dealing with something that's far more amazing than we would have ever dreamed, because he's just using his ventral fin to just make this whole thing with his fin. And he's not looking up. How's it looking down there? He never gets to see it. He's making a cathedral, like as complex as a rose window in a cathedral.
How many people ever have seen that design before?
We're privileged to be among the first, maybe the first generation of men who have seen that, because the fact is that these are things that are being revealed. More about birds of paradise. I'll show you a couple of things about that too. And I hope you did see the videos that we sent to you, because they're wonderful to share with your family, because they're really a very good vehicle to encourage other people to see that point beyond themselves. I think there are about 8 or 9 I gave you, aren't there?
The one with the fingerprint.
The fingerprint, yeah, you'll see that. Yeah. So I'll just show a couple more next week, and then we'll move on. But my whole job, though, is to just impress you with the mind of the Maker, that God is the wellspring, then, of all that is good, and all that is true, and all that is beautiful. And we need to see that we are immersed in such a world, even though fallen, even though tainted by sin and death. It's a disease-death environment. It's not the way it was meant to be. We changed ourselves. The unique biblical teaching, one of so many unique things you'll find nowhere else, is that man is not what God made him. We changed ourselves, you see. And that's an amazing thought. And consequently, then, we see that now he's in the process of restoring that imago Dei at ultimate cost to himself so that he could have a relationship with us. The concept that the one who holds the galaxies together, or who designed the cells, or everything you look at, would be the one who actually takes on humanity and actually becomes the God-man. So there's a man in heaven. So that he came, and as we know, not to be served, but to what? Serve, and to give his life a ransom for many. He came to die. He came to underwrite the cost of our sin. This is utterly unique, so that the more impressed you are with God, guess what's going to happen? The more amazed you'll be at his redemptive work. Because as you begin to realize that Yeshua HaMashiach, he is the ruler of all. He is the express radiance of the glory of God. He is the one who's also died on your behalf. But more than that, he now offers his life to you, wants to live it in you and through you as you, and so now he indwells you. So the very one who holds the cosmos together is inside of you. I'll let you work on that, process that. The very one who inspired the scriptures, the Holy Spirit, now dwells within you. So deep calls to deep. So we're beginning to get a little insight, a little thought about what on earth is he preparing then? If this is a fallen world, what will it be like when there's no world system, there's no flesh pulling us down, the power of sin, and there's no spiritual warfare, the devil and his angels? The world, the flesh, the devil will be overcome and defeated. Their time is very brief. And when that's gone, and then moreover, there will no longer be any disease, no longer any death, no longer any sorrow, suffering, dying. What kind of a world will that be like? And behold, I make all things new, a new realm of physics, as it were. I can't even imagine, because I haven't seen nor heard nor has entered into the heart of man all that God has prepared for those who love him. So I then look at this, and it leverages my appreciation. I want you to leverage the visible to amplify the invisible. That's really what I'm after. If I had to summarize it in one term, that's what it would be. Leverage the visible to amplify the invisible. Last thought here, and it's this. If you haven't signed up, go to kenboa.org, Living with Wisdom in the World That Has Lost It, and this is how you sign up. I'd love you to join us. It's for men and for women. Married and single, so it's we've rented the whole cove, so it's our place. So love you to join us if you can.